Court proceedings reveal MBS paid Trump millions in the past 2 years, human rights group. Elites in Davos strategize on how to fight right-wing groups, hit back. Border Patrol Union rips Kamala Harris's handling of border crisis, you should be fired. Lauren Boebert lands powerful position despite trashing McCarthy. Disloyalty, Trump goes after evangelicals in fiery new rant.
This is breaking news.
I'm Erin Burnett in Washington.
Court proceedings reveal MBS paid Trump millions in the past 2 years, human rights group. A human rights organization founded by slain journalist Jamal Khashoggi is calling on Congress and the Justice Department to investigate former President Donald Trump's business deals with a controversial golf company owned by the Saudi Arabian government and controlled by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Nonprofit Democracy for the Arab World now said LIV Golf, a tournament franchise and PGA golf rival, paid Trump-owned golf resorts unknown millions of dollars to host events. Recent court proceedings revealed that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund chaired by bin Salman owns 93% of LIV Golf and pays 100% of the costs associated with the events. Related. Trump, golf and Saudi Arabia, a filthy cycle of sports washing. The revelation that a fund controlled by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman actually owns almost all of LIV Golf means that MBS has been paying Donald Trump unknown millions for the past 2 years, via their mutual corporate covers, said Dawn Executive Director Sarah Leah Whitson in a Sunday statement. If Trump or his agents discussed any deals with LIV Golf or PIF while Trump was still in office, a criminal investigation would also be in order because federal law strictly prohibits this sort of business dealing by sitting federal officials with foreign governments. Dawn pointed to previous PIF investments in Trump-adjacent business dealings, which have drawn scrutiny over potential ethics law violations, including PIF's $2 billion investment in Affinity Partners, the hedge fund owned by Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and a $1 billion PIF investment in a private equity fund owned by former Trump Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. The Justice Department and Congress have a responsibility to investigate exactly when and to whom and under what terms Trump has obtained unknown millions from Saudi government coffers, controlled by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, which may well violate even our existing, weak ethics laws, said Whitson. Given that Trump is also planning to run again for president, his business ties to Mohammed bin Salman are a national security emergency. Elites in Davos strategize on how to fight right-wing groups, hit back. One panelist said NGOs are terrible at taking a punch from the right wing. Fighting back against the right wing and the disinformation it spreads is a critical step for restoring trust in non-government organizations, NGOs, that are working with governments and other organizations on projects aimed at improving the state of the world, according to participants on a panel Tuesday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. In a discussion about disrupting distrust, Richard Edelman, CEO of the global communications firm Edelman, said one of the sadnesses he's experienced over the last few years has been the deterioration of trust in NGOs. He said companies are now trusted more than NGOs dealing with civil society issues, and he blamed this change on right-wing groups. My hypothesis on that is right-wing groups have done a really good job of disenfranchising NGOs, he said. They've challenged the funding sources. They've associated you with Bill Gates and George Soros. They've said that you're world people, as opposed to actually what you are, which is local. Edelman said issues like how to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and racial equity are all suffering because of reduced trust in the NGOs. He also suggested one way to regain that trust is for NGOs to fight back against these right-wing groups. You guys are great at punching but terrible at taking a punch, he said. You have to learn to do 2 things. One is preempt. When they're going to punch you, you gotta know they're gonna punch you and say, why are they punching us? And, we call it pre-bunking. The other is when they hit you and they're inaccurate, hit back. Don't take it, he added. Edelman and other panelists acknowledged that people opposed to environmental, social, and governance, ESG, goals in the private sector are also forcing companies to reassess how to talk about those goals. When a representative of the Anti-Defamation League said companies are starting to shy away from the explicit use of ESG as a corporate goal, Edelman encouraged companies to hold firm. Business needs to stand its ground, he said. But he also said companies should not lose sight of the fact that they're in business to make money and should make sure ESG goals don't force them down a path of chasing some woke illusion. Focus your attention on 4 issues: sustainability, on jobs and reskilling, focus on diversity, equity and inclusion, and geopolitics, like get out of Russia, he said. But don't take on every issue. Panelist Sula Goss, Senior Vice President at MasterCard for Social Impact, said her company still has a commitment to ESG goals, but indicated there are other ways to discuss those goals. She said her company talks about people, prosperity, planet. Another panelist, United Way Worldwide President Angela Williams, said policymakers need to find more approachable ways to present their ideas. As one example, she said the prospect of banning gas stoves can be a difficult subject for many poor Americans and needs to be couched the right way. If you go to a black woman in the U.S. and tell us we can't use a gas stove anymore because of the emissions, and we need to switch to electric, our comment is, our food's not going to taste the same, she said, adding that another question is how people will be able to afford an electric stove. So where's the credit facility that allows me to do this? The panel's moderator, New York Times opinion editor Kathleen Kingsbury, said another issue related to trust is the disinformation seen on social media sites, saying there are lingering questions about the extent to which big tech companies can remove this content. I think that there are true questions around how the technology platforms disseminate information, particularly disinformation, and they see significant challenges when it comes to content moderation and how to combat the disinformation online, she said. On that issue, Edelman proposed that companies do all they can to defund sites that spread disinformation. I think the first thing that business needs to do is deprive platforms that spread disinformation of oxygen, he said. Stop advertising. Pull your promotion money. Edelman said more needs to be done here, as the boycott of Twitter has had just a modest impact, while attempts to boycott Facebook have failed. This panel was just one of several that were convened on Tuesday. Later in the day, another discussion on the clear and present danger of disinformation was held, moderated by former CNN host Brian Stelter,